This is for research purposes. We will transcribe this and try to give it back to you in 2 months, so you can edit it and do corrections and all of this. This is the new team. This is my research assistant, who is Brian Mays. He's a sociology major, and he's the technician and the like. It's my right arm, so to speak.
I understand. I
can't do it all, but when I can, I bring them along. And there's another young lady who works in the office also as a process of transcribing. I think we ready to roll it. Okay. Are you ready? I'm going to start off with. This is an interview with Senator Willie Simmons of Father Jackson State University Robert Clark Era Oral History Project by Emanuel J. Abston. Senator Simmons is in a conference room in the state capitol, and the time is 11:04. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you this morning.
I wanted to start off with some sort of personal questions and the like about your formative education. I noticed that you attended both Hines County Agricultural High School as well as Utica Junior College. Just comment on that, the years you were there as well as your experience to some degree.
I had a very enjoyable experience. My home is Utica, Mississippi. That's where I was born and reared, and was able to attend high school in Hines County Agricultural High School in Utica. Had some great years on campus at Utica. So when I got ready to go to college, that was the ideal place. I was not leaving home and was able to continue the relationship with many of the friends that I had developed. And there were students coming from all over the counties, Hines County as well as County County, coming to the junior college. So it was just a great opportunity for me to spend 2 more years at home pursuing my education at a higher level. So the ideal place was to enroll in Utica Junior College, which at that time not only was doing well academically, but was doing well in the sports arena as it competed with all of the junior colleges from throughout the state.
Now, the president at that point, was it President Boyd or Walter Washington when you were there?
Dr. Washington was the president when I was there. Dr. Washington left Utica and went on to become president of Alcorn. So I had an opportunity to spend time under Dr. Washington administration, both at Utica as well as at Alcorn State University.
Another question about the Utica experience. Any 1 or 2 faculty members you can readily recall that maybe was a good teacher or someone who made an impression on you, both staff or faculty? Anybody there that you would like to identify?
There were several instructors at Utica who had a lasting effect. One over in the math area was Dr. House. Everybody knew who Dr. House referred to individuals as youngster, and what was a very good inspiration, but it was also a very good instructor. In addition to that, we had a counselor, Ms. Turner, who was very instrumental in guiding us to where we should be going and getting us ready for the next step, which was college. But Ms. Turner was a very personable person and very good to work for. And then the current president of Utica, Hines Community College in Utica, was also very inspirational. Dr. Burns, he also taught in the math area.
Yes, sure.
There were a lot of good instructors, and I can just go down the list. Miss Seafood, Miss Prater, who was in the English department and taught us English, and then I was biology instructor, and his name left me just as I was getting ready to college.
Okay.
But
Harper.
not Harper.
Not Mr. Harper. I can't help you then.
No, it wasn't Harper. It was.
He was science completely, perhaps biology, science.
He's from Jackson.
Yes.
But was a very good biology teacher.
Okay.
So I had great experience with a lot of the instructors, and from time to time I run into them.
Yes.
And of course now they all take credit for my being where I am.
Oh, of course. Of course. Now I'll just say this abruptly. I was on the faculty myself there. I started my career at Utica Junior College. I headed the social science department there from 1966 to 1970. And then I received the appointment at Jackson State. All right. Let me go on to Alcorn State, and then I will sort of move on. What was your major at Alcorn State?
Prior to going, let me just say that the biology instructor was Mr. Anthony.
Oh, okay, yes, Robert Anthony.
Robert Anthony.
Oh, okay.
But at Alcorn, likewise, I had some good experiences at Alcorn. Went there in 1965 after graduating from Utica. Spent 2 years at Alcorn, and that was a great experience. My major was social science.
Okay. I
was over in the department with the folks like Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Smith,
yes,
who taught history, and
C.C. Armstrong.
C.C. Armstrong.
Yes.
Dr. Tellis, who was the economics teacher, as well as geography, and then Miss Donald, who taught in that department. It was a unique kind of family in the social science department, and all the students, whether they were majoring in social science or not, knew those professors. And you now, when you have reunions or you see graduates of Alcorn, some of the favorite conversation is about the experiences that they had with people like Dr. Tellis and Dr. Smith and Dr. Armstrong. So we had a good experience. It was kind of amazing. Up on graduating from Utica Junior College, I, like many black males, really did not focus on what I was going to go to college or not. And during the summer, somewhere around July, conversation with my parents, in particular my mother, about what I was going to do. And at that particular time, I really had not made a decision that I was going to go into college. But the war in Vietnam was heating up, and a lot of people were being drafted, going to the military. So when I found out that one way of perhaps delaying going to the military would be to enroll in college, so kind of wanted to go to Jackson State. Jackson State was in the city of Jackson, as you well know. Had a brother living in Jackson, and my mother really did not want me to be exposed to the city life and follow what he was doing as opposed to staying in school. So she encouraged me to go listen to Valley State, where I had a sister. And I did not want to be where my sister was, so as a result of that, I chose to go to Alcorn. Alcorn accepted me. So I went on campus, not knowing how I was going to be able to pay for my college education at Alcorn, and was able to get work study as well as one of the small loans. So that put me in a position of being able to go. If I had to do all over again, Alcorn would be, no question, the place that I would choose to go.
All right. Now, sort of follow up on that. Alcorn State University Alumni Association seemed to be very strong, and a kind of unified body as I see it from the outside. Now, how vocal or how much input did they have in naming Dr. Clinton Bristow as president? Any comment on that?
The College Board and the process is inclusive as far as the selection process, and they choose individuals that's on that selection team, as you well know. But the alumni do have support and, I guess you can say, participation through that process. But the alumni as a whole, the Alumni Association, does not really play a major role in determining who the president of any of our universities are, for that matter. So, and at Alcorn, the alumni itself as a whole, other than through that process that I just described, again, did not have a whole lot of say in determining whether it was going to be Dr. Bristow or some other place. Although personally I feel like Dr. Bristow did a great job in transforming the university. Dr. Washington had done a great job, and we always had a clean campus. We always was in the light. We continued that trend under Dr. Bristow, and the beautification of the campus, as well as our bringing on new facilities at the campus, and the completion of 4 lane and the highway all took place under his administration. So when you look at it from that perspective, you can say that he did a great job.
Do you recall when you first met Robert Clark of Holmes County?
I first met Representative Clark right after he was elected. Did not know him, well, I knew of him as an educator, because I too was in the field of education up at Rosedale teaching school, but did not know him on a personal note. I always admired, based upon what I'd heard about him and the people who knew him as an educator over in Holmes County. And then I recall in 1967 when he was running for the position of House Representative, that we followed that because I was teaching school at that time in Rosedale as a social studies instructor, and we had formed our class about the fact that we was on the verge of making history in the state of Mississippi, because as you well know, this was going to take us from where we had not had any representation since Reconstruction to being able to have a black sitting in the House of Representatives. So we monitored that, and we kind of celebrated after the election in our class, social study class and civic class, to highlight to the students how important it was for him to be elected. So in 1967, it was a great day for me. I was in Rosedale, Mississippi, teacher school, and the day after the election was able to report to some 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students that Mississippi truly had moved forward, and having now a black representatives to replace, or not replace, but to sit in the same seats that former representatives like Lynch and others, rebels, who had served in the House and the Senate back in the 1800s. So we were very joyful of that.
Now, he was indeed a staunch advocate of education and the like. Let me just ask the question. You've been in the Senate since the 90s, early 90s and the like.
1993.
Yes. So now, are there any bills that come to mind that you can recall that he is associated with for upgrading historical black colleges, you know, the 3? Any legislation before you came, you know, to the Senate that you can
Education Reform Act under the Winters administration.
Yes, okay.
Robert Clark played a major role in pushing that. There were a lot of individuals because associated with that particular act, for some reason, was the kindergarten program. And what many individuals looked at and said that they did not want to put monies into the education system to promote better education. Some of it was across race lines because at that time we were beginning to move toward having more and more blacks in the public school system as opposed to and more and more whites moving out into the private school. So there were a lot of anti-education kinds of attitude that existed in the state, and a lot of individuals in the public policy arena, to include the state captain, who was not in favor of pushing education. Individuals like Representative Robert Clark was very instrumental in working with William Winters and Mavis and Marcus and that whole team that came forward and educated the general public on the importance of passing that Education Reform Act And I think the Education Reform Act, at that particular time, under the Winters administration, started leading the way to improving education and beginning to put more and more funds into the public education arena. So I would say that was one of the big events in education that Representative Clark was able to help bring forward. Representative Clark was always very supportive, and then having been moved to chair the Education Committee on the House side when it wasn't popular or known for a black to be in a leadership position.
This was mid-70s for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So being able to chair the Education Committee, which is one of the big 4 committees, if you want to say.
Yes.
Being appropriation,
yes.
Ways and Means,
Yes.
Public Health, and Education.
Yes.
That was significant, and it helped again pave the way to more progress in the education system.
So now this concept of compulsory school attendance is a part of that package and the like. And heretofore, this was not really, should I say, totally legislated by the legislature prior to this as such, making sure that students, and that's truant offices, and, the whole situation of accountability from standpoint of students having to go to age 16 and thereabouts. Let me go on to another question here. So you were really saying that the legislative package that Clark sponsored pretty much was adopted by the executive leadership of Mississippi, and therefore they made it their own. So is that the translation that you have or not?
I was not here at the time, but I'm told that's what happened, and that happens a lot.
Yes.
We, the minorities, will introduce legislation.
Yes.
And it kind of lay dormant for a while.
Yes.
And then someone else will come along and pick it up, and all of a sudden it becomes the greatest thing since white bread.
Yes.
So that's kind of the way that particular issue worked, based on what I'm told. And Robert Clark came into a very unfriendly environment.
Yes.
When you listen to his story about how he was treated and the seat that he was given, and he was never recognized to be a representative, although he was representing the same number of citizens back home as the other 121 members.
Yes.
And his voice was just as important as theirs, but because of the racist attitude and the condition of the state at that particular time, he was here and elected by the citizens of his district, but was not given the same responsibility or courtesy or respect as the other members of the House of Representatives. So,
on that same note, he was a distinguished graduate of Jackson State University, and did he really have the option of having the president, be it Dr. Hefner and even earlier Dr. People certainly, were they, in lockstep with sending him, should I say, some idea of what is good for Jackson State and what is good for Alcorn State and which is good for Nevada? All 3 presidents. Do you think that prior to you arriving, you think that they had much input with the legislatures as well as the college board, as far as getting things for their universities and the like? Or just even since you've been here?
I do not think that they had as much input as others.
Yes.
And I don't think their input was welcome.
Oh, okay.
Or really given serious consideration, and I'll give you a few examples of that. Prior to our coming, when Representative Clark was here, I'm more than sure that they saw Representative Clark as their only conduit for communicating certain kinds of things.
Yes. But
due to the numbers and the fact that it was only Representative Clark until a few years later when a class came in, the Ed Blackmans and Percy Watsons of the world came in, that he really could not have the influence that we, the 47 members, have today. But in addition to that, because of the way that IHL was structured and their method of operating, those black presidents coming from Jackson State, Alcorn, and Mississippi Valley State did not, again, have an opportunity to dialogue with the leadership in the legislation and get special kind of projects funded or taken care of like they did in other institutions. When I came in 1993, was fortunate to be able to serve on the university and colleges as vice chairperson and also on the appropriation committee. And I could see the intimidation as we would have the hearings and the meetings for the president's IHL to come, and when the president would make their presentation, oftentimes it would come across that they were very uncomfortable trying to push issues that IHL is not sanctioned. So they would have to follow what IHL sanctions. So if they have a need, but IHL commissioners was not recommending those needs, but giving them some of the things that they have, the commissioners wanted them to have, then they had to be pleased with that and could not go in conflict with that. So sometimes we would kind of pull them off to the side and say, now, we've heard what was said, and now that is the proposal. What is it that you really do want? What is the really needs are out there? And that was one of the ways in which working with Representative Clark and the other members on the House side and the senators on the Senate side in 1995, Jackson State, Alcorn, and Mississippi Valley State, along with MUW and Delta State, were not really given adequate funding because of the formula that the legislation created in funding the institutions of higher learning. The big three, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and University of Mississippi, received the greatest share. Well, we took on the project in 1995 of changing that and putting more equity into it, where we put in special funding, special monies for Jackson State, Alcorn, Mississippi Valley State. And since the other two universities was part of that, is not being funded adequate, MUW and Delta State University. And as a result of that, we was able to upgrade the salaries in 1995, bring them more in line with what the salaries were being received of that. We also was able to receive a significant amount of money for new facilities on those campuses. And I can recall for the salary upgrade and program upgrade, we put in like $17 million in year 2004 or 05 or 1994 or 1995 in order to make that happen. So, that was done outside of what IHL was recommending. But it was done working with the senators, the lieutenant governor at the time, Eddie Briggs, and the House members, Representative Clark, who was on the Education Committee, and I believe Representative Alice Clark, who was on the University and College of Finance. So we were able to do that, and that began to make a difference. But again, an example of that further, Alcorn State University, the oldest land-grant university in the state. When we came into office, Mississippi State is the other land-grant university. Mississippi State was receiving, I believe, $21 or $22 million for its agriculture-related programs. Alcorn was receiving $172,000 for its agriculture program. But what the legislature would do is fund Mississippi State $21 million or so, and then give them an additional appropriation of $172,000, and Mississippi State would write a check to Alcorn for its agriculture-related program, as opposed to funding Alcorn direct, just as they were doing Mississippi State. And we've had those kinds of problems with all of our black universities. When we came into existence, the 45 of us and now 47 of us, we began to approach and work on doing those kind of things and give some support to what Representative Clark had been advocating for since 1967.
Sure.
And as a result of that, has been able to improve it tremendously, although we still have a long way to go.
Just focusing in on Alcorn precisely, do you recall when they got the new stadium, this Pink Stadium? Was that before you came, or was that in the early 90s?
It was a few years before I came.
Okay.
And that was a great event for us to be able to get that stadium. But there was a flaw with that, and the president really accepted the stadium because we had a need for a stadium and was very pleased to be able to get it. And the flaw with it is that the legislature appropriated money to build a stadium with no lights. We didn't put lights in the stadium, so we could
play games on.
Put day games on and not play ball at night. After we came a few years later, we were able to get monies appropriated for the stadium. Similar kind of thing up in Mississippi Valley State. A new stadium was built.
Yeah, sure.
And very, very happy to get the stadium. But somehow, the stadium, when it was built, placed a press box for the president on the visitor side of the stadium. Well, the president again accepted the stadium because it was a need for the stadium with that flaw, But and I say to individuals all the time that we, the policymakers, have to be involved in helping the presidents of those universities get what those universities truly need, and not just rely on the president bringing it to play, because the president is limited in what he or she can do because of the structure. And if the IHL commissioner is not seeing it in the manner in which the president sees it, it may never happen unless we, the policymakers at this level and the alumni, step up to the plate and make sure we get the university what it truly needs.
Most interesting. Okay, let's just focus in on the 90s now. Robert Clark became Speaker Pro Tem, and I would say in 91, and I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, and that's before you arrived, but do you know whether or not he was with any opposition? Was he the only person that, things have gone totally about face, and so was he opposed by any blacks? Was it any whites to oppose him for that position?
If I recall correctly, it was in 92 when he became the speaker. And there was some opposition, but the leadership knew that a person that was being chosen, Speaker Tim Ford, knew that there had been changes in the legislative body. And in 1992, there came another group of black legislators. And in order for a speaker to be elected, he or she could not write off those 32 members or so coming from the state of Mississippi, black legislators. So with that, I'm assuming that part of the compromise was to pull in those votes and make sure that they had that solid block of votes coming from the black representatives by putting on the ballot with him the Speaker Pro Tem, Robert Clark. And it worked. They were elected and led the House of Representatives until both Speaker Clark and Speaker Ford resigned.
All right, so that is true. All right, and Tim Ford. What about the politics of his election? That reform era that you're talking about here. Was there 2 or 3 other candidates running against him, or was it that the reformers, along with the Black Caucus, as we would call it, in the House, put pressure to just have 1 or 2 persons?
That was pretty strong opposition.
It was
against the former leadership. But it was.
But Newman certainly, was out.
Right, but it was that coalition of Democrats, blacks, and some Republicans.
Okay.
That the Speaker Ford was able to put together and gave them the votes to move forward. Now, out of that, in addition to the Speaker Pro Tem, it led to blacks having some additional leadership positions that we had not had before. Although we did not get finance or appropriation.
And got Ways and Means.
We didn't get Ways and Means at that period of time. We have it now. But following that election of Speaker Ford and Speaker Pro Tem Robert Clark, there were some leadership positions. Tyrone Ellis, I believe, was put in as utilities chairperson.
Okay.
Ed Blackman as Judiciary 8 committee, and Charles Young, University and Colleges chairperson. So you had some leadership coming from the Black Caucus that emerged as a result of the leadership that had been elected, being Ford and that of Robert Clark. It also put the caucus in a position with Robert Clark being able to serve on ALBO, the Legislative Budget Office Committee, which is a very crucial and key committee because that committee is a committee that sets the budget for the legislature to work from when we come into session in January. And Representative Robert Clark, I believe, was the first black to serve on the ALBO committee, which was, again, very significant. Having been chairperson of the Education Committee, being the Speaker Pro Tem in the House, and now becoming a member of ALBO, he carried the big stick, so to speak, as far as the Legislative Black Caucus, and we refer to him as the dean of the caucus and our point person, our key person. That was very important to us to be able to have that kind of leadership in that committee, in that position.
Yeah. Okay, now a little digression, but this is a question I just want to pose to you. Robert Clark was strongly associated with fox hunting and the like, and he had this annual fox hunt and the like. Now, do you think that maybe endeared him to, should I say, to the whole legislative body to some degree? Mere fact that he was an outdoorsman, he was a gentleman farmer. Do you think that has any bearing on his acceptance and ultimately rise to power as Speaker Pro Tem?
I think it played a role, very, very similar to other things that we do in life.
Okay.
If you play golf or if you are involved in other kind of activities, and people network around those activities. Robert Clark was known as the fox hunter of the legislative body because he kept his dogs, he trained his dogs, and that was his life. I mean, when he was not with family and doing the legislative thing, that was what he talked about. Doing it. By his opening up that venue and putting in place an annual event with all legislators and others were invited to participate in on a Monday evening up in Holmes, Madison County area. Then it became something that people look forward to. And when you do that, it creates a process for getting to know your members and for your members to get to know you in a different limelight from just sitting in that chair or going to the well and addressing an issue. But it gives an opportunity, creates an opportunity for people to get to know you on a social level and to respect what you do from that point of view. It also opens up an opportunity for people to be able to understand one another's value system because of the networking and the lines of communication that is opened up. And when you do those kind of things and people begin to respect your values, although they may not agree with you, it diminishes the adversity that oftentimes will exist just through perception. Because a lot of times we get mad with folks and don't agree with folks based upon rumors and perceptions of the world as opposed to truly knowing each other well. I think that kind of activity in a social setting allowed individuals to come to know another side of Robert Clark. And when you get to know a person from that point of view, you begin to develop more trust and understand their value system, and you will work with them and utilize them in a different manner from what you do on otherwise.
Now, let's focusing in on your district. What is the black-white ratio in your county? Is it that you are unopposed normally for the senatorship, or is it that you have 2 or 3 people each time aspiring to unseat you?
I ran in 1993.
Okay.
And at that time, I was running against a gentleman who had served for 29 years, Senator Robert Crook of Rupert. And through the grace of God, family support, and a lot of friends, we were able to win the election by about 54%.
Okay.
Following that, I did not have any opposition until 2003 when I ran, and I picked up opposition that year, partly I think because of redistricting. We had never had represented Humphreys County, but we were moved into the Humphreys County area of Arizona, and a young gentleman who I highly respect decided to run from Humphreys County. Also, in the general election, there was a person who decided to run as a Republican, so I had 2 opponents in 03. We're very fortunate and blessed this year to be running for re-election, and we do not have any opposition. So, of all of the elections that we have had since winning in 1993, I have not had any opposition except for year 2003. The makeup of the counties that I live in, all of the counties that I represent, Bolivar, Sunflower, and Humphreys, has a 60+% black population. My district, however, is a little bit different than that. My district is about 58% black BB, voting age population.
Okay. And as far as campaign strategy and this, without being so precise, do you normally run on being supportive of economic development? Should I say upgrading education? What is normally the dynamics of your, of your strategy to win such elections? Is it pretty much the same campaign strategy?
My campaign platform, if that's what you want to call it.
Sure, okay.
Consisted of those things. Economic development.
Okay.
I saw economic development continuously, the lack of job opportunities as well as jobs that pay low wages as one of the reasons that the district and the Delta that I represent consist of 30+% poverty. The population is better than 30%. So economic development is key. I am a former school teacher, taught school,
sure.
Have 4 children who have gone through the public school system. And I recognize that education was very important, but also that education was not getting its fair share of resources, especially in Mississippi Delta. So I advocated for trying to push for a better education system. In addition to that, having worked at the Department of Corrections for 17 years and seeing who come into that system, primarily our young black males, I thought that youth should be something that we should focus on in the area of prevention. So I always advocated for and campaigned on the fact that we want to improve programs for our youth. So economic development, education, and youth, and then taking care of the senior citizen were the things that I really campaigned on. My first campaign was I committed to doing several things, specific things, and one of those, 2 of those was around Alcorn State University. During my time at Alcorn, I had several friends, individuals that I knew, to be killed in car accidents on what we call the 7-mile stretch, with a bad road going into Alcorn. One of my commitments was to work towards trying to make sure that we 4-lane that highway and got rid of all of those bad roads. The other thing was what I talked to you about earlier. was to bring some equity into the funding for our black universities. And in particular, Alcorn, since I had been told that we were only getting $172,000, and Mississippi State was getting $21,000, and they would not appropriate the monies to Alcorn for that purpose. I'm pleased to report that we've accomplished both. And at one time, before the budget got bad and we began to scale back, we had Alcorn at $8 million that it was receiving direct for his agriculture-related programs. And we now, if you drive down to Alcorn, you're on a four-lane highway. So very pleased with that kind of progress. And those were two things that, when I was on the campaign trail, I picked up on and said that I was going to work toward eliminating.
And the Alcorn State Alumni Association certainly know you very well.
They have a tendency to recognize me.
All right. Now, Senator Simmons, how do you want to be remembered in this? You know, as senator from Oliver County, and what do you think is going to be your legacy?
I want to be remembered as a senator who had an agenda with a vision for the state and adults. I want to be remembered as a senator who had integrity, and that I had principles that I stood on and worked toward. And those principles were to empower the people of the state of Mississippi, and in particular the black community. I feel real bad and frustrated when I look at the fact that we appropriate over $3 billion a year, and when I look at the black community and look at the individuals who benefit from that in the way of entrepreneur, in the way of businesses. Now, we have a lot of citizens who benefit from what we do, whether it's going to college, or whether it's Medicaid, or whether it's some other programs that we put monies into. But when you look at the real cause of the community being in the state that it's in, is that the money is not turning over in the black communities. So as a result of that, you do not have black entrepreneurs who are making the money and hiring other individuals and turning the money over in the community. When I look at it from that point of view, I am real embarrassed, frustrated, and very disgusted about that process. So I want to be remembered as a senator who worked toward making a difference in that arena and changing that, so that we can say that as a result of our being here, a significant number of black businesses has been created, and a significant number of those businesses are doing well, and we are making millionaires. When I reflect back on the fact that I was born a colored baby, and my community was poor and struggling. I graduated from high school a Negro boy, and my community was struggling and poor and suffering. I graduated from college an Afro-American young man, and my black community was struggling and suffering and poor. I got married as a black man, and my community was struggling, poor and struggling and suffering. I came to the state senate as a minority, and my black community is still struggling, suffering, and poor. I want to change that so that my community can be empowered and become self-sufficient as opposed to being dependent on the government or some other source. I want to change that to the point where my citizens are not working for employers who don't pay benefits and don't pay livable wages, to a situation where they have benefits and can provide adequate health care and affordable health care for their families and themselves so that they can stay healthy. In addition to that, where they are making livable wages so that they can own their own home as opposed to renting and have that self-pride. That's the kind of senator that I want to be remembered as being, and that when individuals look at my record and look at the position that I have taken, that I want them to be able to say that although he may not have been able to accomplish everything that he wanted to accomplish, when you look at his record and when you look at the issues that he proposed and supported, the bills that he introduced, it was around making sure that his people became self-sufficient and his people were empowered and they were functioning and being able to take care of their families and advance their community, as opposed to a lot of the problems we are facing with, again, whether we refer to as colored people, Negroes,
yes,
Afro-American, blacks, or minorities. We must change that and transform that level of poverty into a state of prosperity.
I have asked you several pinpointed questions and like, are there any unsolicited comments you'd like to make before I sort of end this? Anything come to mind, any personal experiences you had with Robert Clark that you would like to share at this point?
It is, and again, it goes back to when I first heard about Robert Clark, and then when I first learned he had been elected, that was an inspiration to me.
Okay.
Robert Clark, later on in life, decided he wanted to become congressman before Mike Espy.
Yes.
And in doing that, I had decided to support a young man from Baldwin County by the name of Robert Gray. And I think the year was 1984 when he ran. I came to know Robert Clark on the campaign trail, although I was working against him because I was supporting Robert Gray. But what I found about Robert Clark is that he
was he running as independent, or was he running as Democrat?
He was running as Democrat.
Oh, he was.
And what I found about him at that time is that he was a guy with integrity. He was a professional, and he had a kind heart. I never heard him say or suggest anything negative about the candidate that I was working for or any other person, but he was working toward saying he wanted to improve and better serve the constituents in the 2nd District, which is the same thing my candidate was saying. So he won the primary, and my candidate lost the primary. Robert Clark came to Baldwin County in his mannerable way and sought me out and said to me that I would like for you to become part of my team, and I would like for you to coordinate the activities here in Baldwin County to see if we can win the election. I readily said yes to him.
Okay.
And my rationale for saying is because of what I just said about it, is that the kind of person I saw in him, and although we was trying to win the election against him because we had chosen another candidate, I felt that since my candidate had lost, that he would be the ideal person because, in essence, we had very similar goals, and that was to bring about better representation to the 2nd Congressional District. And although Robert was not successful in doing so, and we came back together again when Mike Espy was running because Robert Clark was supportive of Mike Espy, and I was again the county coordinator up in Baldwin County. And then when I was elected to the Senate, and Robert Clark had been there forever, and the caucus was, as we normally do from time to time, have a difference of opinion. Some folks from the outside may say we were feuding in a sense, but we weren't agreeing on everything. And Robert Clark came to me one day and he said, Senator, I have observed you and I watch you, and I think you are a man who can take the caucus and lead it in a different direction. And if any person can bring the caucus together and make it work, I would say that it is you. And I'm going to encourage you to run for chairperson of the state caucus, black caucus. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Coming from the dean, the person who had been here through the years since 1967, and here I am coming in 1993 as a young person who had never served in the legislature, and he's looking at all of the individuals who had served before me and kind of picking me to say, you're the person that I think can lead this organization.
Head and shoulders above the rest.
I thought that was very commendable, and was very pleased. So in that regard, I have a lot of respect for him, and I wish him well in all of his future endeavors, and hope he continues to enjoy fox hunting if he still has time to do it, because I see he has a busier schedule now than he did before, because he served on all kinds of boards and various activities, to include one that I hope something good will come out of, and that is the Delta Initiative Commission. That's so important to change the Mississippi Delta and all of those citizens who continue to suffer and live in poverty in the Delta, as well as the education system.
A million thanks, Senator Simmons, for your reflections on this era. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure.
All right. Okay. Stop, right?